Let's find some great books to read. Now, one way to do that is to look at what books are popular. And when I say popular, I say the most popular books of all time. So let's take a look. What are the best-selling works of fiction of all time? I'm not including religious texts in here. I'm not including political texts. I'm not including nonfiction. This is all just fiction. And comment below before you watch this video. What do you think are the best-selling novels of all time? Now, of course, these numbers that I'm going to give you, they're all just estimates. It's actually more difficult than you might think to figure out how many books have been sold. And of course, this doesn't take into account even the reselling of books or anything like that. And I think a lot of times it doesn't take into account audiobooks. But let's get started with number 10, and that is The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Now, of this list, this is one of the few books that I haven't read, and actually I don't think I care to read it or ever will. I don't know, just I've heard that the writing is really just not that good. And I don't know, I don't feel like I'm particularly snobbish when it comes to good writing. I mean, I feel like I can enjoy a pop fiction book or something like that, or a book that's meant for, quote, the masses, whatever that means. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I just have never really been interested in that book, and I don't think I'll ever read it. Oh, and the estimated number of books sold of the Da Vinci Code is 80 million. Now, number 9 on this list, also at 80 million, is The Little Prince. This is my copy. It is in French. I have read it in French, although I would say that I understood about 1/3 of what was written. That is the level of my French. I've never read it in English. I probably should just do it one of these days because I've heard it's fantastic. Now, next up at number 8 is a book that I've actually never heard of. With 80 to 100 million copies is The Dream of the Red Chamber by Cao Shuxin. This is a classic Chinese novel, an 18th century novel, and it is about the decline of an aristocratic family. I'm very intrigued by this novel, mostly because I've never heard of it and because it's sold so many copies. I mean, there's gotta be something to it, right? I mean, I'd really like to read this novel at some point in my life. When? I don't know. Next up at number 7 with 85 million copies sold is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I actually recently reread this book with my son. He read it to me. He got a kick out of it. He really liked it. My daughter's read it. Obviously, I've read it many times. It's definitely a great work of classic literature. Next up at 100 million copies is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This one I've read. This one I definitely enjoyed. I would say that, at least for me, personally speaking as a modern reader, I feel like this book was a victim of its own success. I mean, Agatha Christie, the Queen of Mystery. So, I've read a lot of other mystery novels that I felt like, to me, were more tense and more gripping, but I feel like that's only because those authors are standing on the shoulders of Agatha Christie. So if you're trying to go back in time and read it as a reader at this time, I do think this is a fantastic work of fiction. Next up is The Hobbit at 100 million copies. I would have to agree, this is one of my favorite books of all time as well. I agree with the quote, masses, a beautiful book, a wonderful book. If you've never read The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, and you may be wondering, do you need to read The Hobbit to understand The Lord of the Rings? I don't personally think so, especially because the copy of The Lord of the Rings that I have, it has a prologue that gives you all the information that you really need out of this book to read The Lord of the Rings. There are a few things that you need to know, but they're not hard to figure out if you don't want to go through the whole book. However, I would say this book is definitely worth your time. Next up at 100 million copies is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and if you include the whole series, I believe more than 500 million books have been sold with the whole series. I actually finished the Harry Potter series last year for the first time with my daughter, and it was really fun getting through the series with her, seeing it through her eyes as, a kid. And I feel like I understand now why Harry Potter is such a sensation, especially with the last book. I felt like she really tied everything together in a very almost surprising way, because as I finished the book, I realized so many things that were in all of the 7 books that you thought were just kind of, I don't know, extemporaneous, they actually weren't. Everything had a reason. Next up at 150 million copies is The Lord of the Rings, which I guess you could say is part of the same story. This is technically part of the same story. But I agree with the millions, hundreds of millions of people who have read The Lord of the Rings, one of my favorite books of all time, and I say this as someone who doesn't like to read fantasy. Brilliant, beautiful, love it. Next up at 200 million copies, but with 100 years on The Lord of the Rings, meaning it was published about 100 years before The Lord of the Rings, is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Now, I am actually currently listening to A Tale of Two Cities, and the reason reason why is because of this list. I actually did not know that this book was so well sold. I'd have to say that I am enjoying the book. I'm enjoying listening to it. I would say it is quite difficult though. The language is quite archaic and the story is fairly difficult to follow, at least for me. And I say this as someone who thought that Middlemarch was archaic. To me, it seems more difficult than Middlemarch. I don't know. It could just be me. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think about A Tale of Two Cities in terms of its difficulty level? And I am actually listening to the chapters quite attentively and quite slowly and going back many times, you know, pressing go back 15 seconds, go back 30 seconds many times. And I am also supplementing when I read a chapter just to make sure that I actually got it. I'm supplementing it with cliff notes. Regardless, I am enjoying the process. And let me know in the comments below, what do you think of A Tale of Two Cities? And the best-selling work of fiction of all time with 350 years on The Lord of the Rings. So it's had 350 years more than The Lord of the Rings has to sell books, but that is Don Quixote by Miguel Cervantes. I was actually supposed to start this book in March, but I got distracted by The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton and Persuasion by Jane Austen. This is my one big chunky classic that I plan on reading this year, so I will finish this year sometime. I'm very much looking forward to it. This is a very influential novel, obviously the best-selling novel of all time, and I'm excited to see what do over 500 million people, and I'm sure it's more than that when you consider borrowed books, when you consider library books, when you consider books that you buy at a thrift store, what do all these hundreds of millions of people know that I don't? Well, I hope you have found a good book to read, and as always, happy reading.